Stop living life like it's happening to you. Most people live like life is a weather report. Good days happen to you, bad days happen to you, opportunity happens to you, motivation happens to you, and that mindset quietly turns you into a passenger. Here's the upgrade. Life actually comes from you, not to you. That's not a motivational poster. It's a strategy. Because the moment you accept it, you stop asking, what will I get? And start asking, what will I create? And that one switch changes how you handle stress, relationships, work, money, even your identity. Welcome back to Thinking and Being. If you like what you see today, please be sure to like and subscribe, as it will keep content like this coming your way. If life comes to you, you wait. If life comes from you, you move. This is the difference between reacting and generating, between consuming and creating, between being an NPC and being the main character. And the reason this hits so hard is because you already know it's true. The best seasons of your life weren't when everything was perfect. They were when you were engaged, when you were building, caring, producing, and showing up. Life felt alive because you were alive in it. So here's a real trap: externalization. I'll start when I feel ready. I'll be happy when the thing happens. I'll change when my schedule calms down. That's living like the cause is outside of you. But if life comes from you, then your job is to generate causes. One call, one rep, one honest conversation, one page, one step. Because the world doesn't reward your intentions. It rewards what you ship. And why does your brain externalize? And how do you interpret it? Your brain is wired to externalize because it's a survival machine. When uncertainty shows up, the fastest way to feel safe is to blame circumstances, wait for permission, or look for a savior. Because taking responsibility feels risky. Responsibility means if I can act, I can also fail. So the mind chooses a quieter pain, waiting. That's why life happens to me feels natural, even when it's costing you. Here's the interrupt. Name the locus. Ask, what part of this is in my control? Then ask, what's the smallest action I can take in 10 minutes? Not the perfect action, the smallest one, because the point isn't heroics. It's regaining agency. The moment you move, your nervous system gets a signal that I'm not trapped. And once you're not trapped, you can think again. And here's a signature line that people need to hear twice, and I've said in a recent video, is that action drives motivation, not the other way around. Most people wait for confidence, energy, and inspiration. That is actually backwards. You act, and then your brain updates and says, oh, we're the kind of person who does that. That's how identity changes. It's the only way. Not through insight, but through evidence that can be observed. If life comes from you, then your first question every day has to become, what's the smallest action that proves I'm who I say I am? And here's a quick mental tool. You can run everything through this one filter. Is this making me a creator or a consumer? Consumer isn't just Netflix. It's doom scrolling, gossip, outrage. It's waiting. It's researching forever and ever. Creator is anything that produces reality. Building skills, building relationships, building health, building work, building meaning, building a product. Life coming from you doesn't mean you never rest. It just means that you stop living in a passive trance. You become intentional about what you feed versus what you output. And then when it comes to relationships, stop being an emotional customer. If life comes from you, then relationships change instantly. Most people enter relationships like customers. Do you make me feel good? Do you validate me? Do you give me what I want? It really helps if you can flip it. What do I bring? What do I stand for? What environment do I create? That's how you avoid toxic loops, because toxic people live off of reaction. They pull life out of you. A person who believes that life comes from you sets the tone, sets the boundaries, and stops negotiating with chaos. And then work and money. Don't let systems turn you into a battery. We've already talked about this in other episodes. Modern systems often want you in predictable loops. mortgages, long careers, identity tied to titles. Life comes to you is how the system keeps you compliant. You wait for permission, you wait for retirement, you wait for someday. If you believe that life comes from you, that is how you reclaim agency inside any system. Develop portable skills, build side leverage, create optionality, produce proof of work. Even if you keep a day job, you stop being a battery, you become a generator. And ancient traditions already knew this. This isn't a new idea. It's old wisdom wearing modern clothes. Stoicism basically says you don't control events. You control your response and your character. That's from you. Buddhism points to the mind as the lens shaping experience. Suffering changes when perception and attachment change. Also a from you concept. And then Christian theology has versions of bearing fruit, life expressed through action, service, and inner transformation. Again, from you. Different traditions disagree on metaphysics, but they converge on one point. The quality of your life is generated internally and expressed outwardly. And then, as we always go back to in this channel, systems thinking. Here's a causal loop that traps people. First, you have external focus. You wait for events, which causes you to take less action, which provides less evidence of agency. And then you have lower self-trust, leading to more anxiety and avoidance, which leads to more consumption and distraction. And that in turn comes back around, leading to even more external focus. That loop feeds itself. It's stable, it's just stable in the wrong way. Here's a loop to think about instead. I call it a balancing and growth loop to live a life that comes from you. Start with small intentional action. Then that leads to evidence. I do what I say, which is huge. Then that leads to higher self-trust, which leads to lower anxiety, which leads to more capacity, which leads to bigger action, which leads to stronger identity, and again, back to more intentional action. Notice the key variable, self-trust. Most people aren't missing information. They're missing self-trust because they have no evidence trail. Action produces the evidence. And as we know from my episodes touching on quantum physics and possible realities, observation changes outcomes. Here's what to consider with life coming from you. Your attention is your measurement device. What you repeatedly focus on becomes your experience reality because it shapes your decisions, your mood, your opportunities, and your learning. You don't need to claim the universe is magical. You just need to recognize that attention collapses possibilities into choices. If you keep measuring yourself as powerless, you'll live inside that world. If you start measuring yourself as someone who acts, you'll shift timelines because your behavior changes. And here's a good protocol. Here's 3 questions that force a mindset of from you living. If you want this to be practical, do this daily. Ask yourself, what am I creating today, even small? What am I reinforcing today? Habits, identity, relationships. And then third, what's one brave action I can take before noon so the day doesn't consume you? That's it. That's the whole method. You don't need a personality transplant. You need a daily output. So you don't find meaning, you actually emit it. The world trains you to be a consumer of meaning. Show me purpose, show me motivation, show me the sign. But the punchline is you are the source. Life doesn't become meaningful when the perfect situation arrives. It becomes meaningful when you decide what you stand for and then you act like it. So here's the challenge. Today, do one thing that proves that life actually comes from you. Not someday, not when you feel ready, today. So that's all for this week. Thanks for watching. Until next time, keep thinking and being, and do not go gentle into that good night.